Teutul Jr. built some of the most iconic bikes in reality TV history, but it wasn't the chrome or horsepower that made him famous. It was the explosive feud that tore his family apart on camera. For years, fans have debated what was real, what was staged, and whether the rumors about behind-the-scenes tension were ever fully addressed. Now, Paul Jr. is finally speaking out, and what he's confirming is changing how people see American Chopper forever. Was the fallout authentic, exaggerated, or something even more complicated? The truth might surprise you, and it raises bigger questions today. Before the cameras, the shouting matches, and the headlines, Paul Jr. was simply the quiet creative force inside a fast-growing custom bike shop. While others focused on engines and raw power, he obsessed over design. The tiny details most people would never notice but could instantly feel. And it didn't take long for fans to realize something. The jaw-dropping bikes rolling out of the shop often had his fingerprints all over them. Viewers were drawn to his calm confidence, especially when it clashed with the louder personalities around him. You could almost sense the tension building in those early days. A young designer pushing boundaries while working under a father known for his tough, no-nonsense approach. At first, it looked like the perfect balance, discipline meeting creativity, but beneath the surface, the pressure was stacking up. As the show exploded in popularity, so did expectations. Deadlines got tighter, arguments lasted longer, and every disagreement suddenly played out in front of millions. What most fans didn't realize was that success was quietly planting the seeds for one of reality TV's most unforgettable family conflicts. And the moment that tension finally snapped, no one watching was prepared for what came next. What started as small creative disagreements didn't stay small for long. The shop was louder, the builds were bigger, and the pressure to top the last bike was constant. Paul Sr. believed in structure, speed, and authority. Paul Jr. believed great design couldn't be rushed. Neither man liked backing down. And viewers could feel that standoff growing thicker with every episode. Then came the arguments that fans still talk about today. Tools slammed onto workbenches, voices echoed across the shop floor, and simple meetings somehow turned into full-blown confrontations. At first, people wondered if it was just stress from tight deadlines. But insiders later suggested the friction had been building long before the cameras arrived. Working with family can blur lines, and when business gets mixed with personal history, every disagreement hits twice as hard. The turning point arrived during a heated clash that spiraled faster than anyone expected. Words were exchanged that couldn't be taken back. Tempers flared past the point of control, and suddenly the unthinkable happened. Paul Jr. was told to leave the company. Not quietly, not privately, but in a moment broadcast to millions. Fans were stunned. How could a partnership that built an empire fall apart so publicly? But what happened after that blow-up would prove the story was far from over. Walking away from the company could have ended Paul Jr.'s career overnight. After all, he wasn't just leaving a job, he was stepping away from the brand that made him famous. For a moment, it looked like he might disappear from the custom bike world completely. Critics even whispered that without his father's shop, his success might stall out. But they were about to be proven very wrong. Instead of fading into the background, Paul Jr. made a bold move. He launched his own company, determined to build bikes on his terms, without the constant clashes that once surrounded him. And almost immediately, curiosity exploded. Fans wanted to know, could he really succeed alone? Then came the twist no one saw coming. When his new shop opened, the crowd showed up in huge numbers. Orders started rolling in, high-profile projects followed, and suddenly it was clear that his design talent hadn't depended on anyone else. If anything, the split seemed to fuel him. But success didn't silence the rumors. Many wondered what this meant for the already fragile relationship with his father. Was this quiet competition a message, or the beginning of a rivalry even bigger than the one viewers watched unfold on TV? And just when it seemed the distance between them couldn't grow wider, things got even more complicated. Just when fans thought the fallout couldn't get any messier, the tension spilled far beyond the workshop. This wasn't just a family argument anymore. It was turning into a battle over money, ownership, and control of the empire they had built together. Behind closed doors, negotiations grew colder, and before long, accusations surfaced that made it clear this situation was heading somewhere serious. At the center of it all was a dispute over company shares. Paul Jr. believed he was entitled to his stake, while Paul Sr. fought to maintain control of the business. What followed was a legal showdown that shocked longtime viewers. The father-son bond that once looked unbreakable was now being tested in a way no one had imagined during those early episodes. For fans, it raised an uncomfortable question. Was the relationship damaged beyond repair, or was this simply the cost of mixing family with business? Either way, the emotional distance between them seemed larger than ever. Then came a resolution that few predicted. Paul Sr. ultimately bought out Paul Jr.'s ownership, officially closing the chapter on their professional partnership. It was final, undeniable, and symbolic. But ending the business ties didn't end the curiosity, because what happened next hinted that their story was far from finished. With the legal fight behind him and the business ties officially cut, Paul Jr. did something few people expected. He stepped away from the chaos and focused on building a life that looked nothing like the constant tension viewers had grown used to. Instead of heated arguments and impossible deadlines, his world began to center around stability, creativity, and family. He poured his energy into expanding his brand, taking on ambitious custom builds and partnerships that proved he was more than capable of standing on his own. But what surprised fans even more was the personal transformation happening off-camera. Paul Jr. embraced marriage, fatherhood, and a slower pace, a sharp contrast to the explosive environment that once defined his daily life. People who followed his journey noticed he seemed calmer, more measured, and far less interested in public drama. Still, the internet never stopped asking the same question. Had success softened the wounds, or were they simply buried? Occasional public appearances suggested the frost between father and son might be thawing, but neither seemed eager to reveal too much. That silence only fueled speculation, and just as viewers began wondering whether time had healed the past, whispers about a possible reunion started getting louder than ever. Years passed, and something unexpected began to happen. The anger that once defined their relationship didn't seem quite as intense. Fans started noticing small but meaningful signs that the deep freeze between father and son might be easing. It wasn't a dramatic reunion or a headline-grabbing moment, just subtle shifts that got people talking. They were occasionally seen in the same spaces, speaking more respectfully about each other in interviews, and showing a level of maturity that hadn't always been there during the show's peak. Paul Jr. hinted that becoming a father changed his perspective, making him think differently about family, time, and what truly matters. Meanwhile, Paul Sr. appeared more reflective in later conversations, suggesting that years of conflict had taught him lessons too. But before anyone could assume everything was fully repaired, both men made one thing clear. Their relationship would never look the way it once did. Too much had happened. Too many lines had been crossed. Trust isn't something you rebuild overnight. Still, the possibility of working together again suddenly didn't feel impossible. And that alone was enough to send longtime fans into a frenzy of speculation. Because behind the cautious respect, one question remained. Would they ever share the spotlight again? Just when it seemed their story had settled into a quiet distance, a new wave of rumors began spreading. And this time, they caught even longtime fans off guard. Talk of another American Chopper revival started circulating, and almost immediately, people asked the same question. Would Paul Jr. finally return to work alongside his father? The speculation grew stronger as both men spoke more openly about their past. In later interviews, Paul Sr. suggested that some of the unforgettable blow-ups viewers watched weren't quite as spontaneous as they appeared. According to him, reality TV has a way of turning tension into must-see drama, sometimes pushing emotions to the edge for the sake of great television. That single admission made fans rethink everything they thought they knew. Was the feud entirely real, mostly real, or partially amplified once producers realized the conflict kept audiences hooked? Suddenly, moments that once felt purely emotional looked a little more complicated. Paul Jr., for his part, has remained careful with his words, choosing not to dive too deeply into those claims, and that silence has only made the mystery stronger. If some of the chaos was intensified for the cameras, it raises an even bigger question. How much of what we watched was reality and how much was storytelling? Looking back, the story of Paul Jr. isn't just about custom bikes or reality TV fame. It's about ambition, pride, family, and the price that sometimes comes with building something bigger than yourself. What started as a father-son dream turned into one of television's most unforgettable fallouts, yet somehow both men managed to carve their own paths forward. Today, the rumors may never fully disappear. Fans still analyze old episodes, searching for clues about what was genuine and what may have been pushed further for the spotlight. But maybe the real takeaway isn't choosing sides, it's recognizing how complicated family and business can become when the whole world is watching. One thing is certain, whether they ever fully reunite or not, the legacy they created changed reality television forever. And honestly, some stories don't need a perfect ending to remain legendary.